Boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages, Jesse with the Common Nerd, bringing you pop culture and all things nerdy through a common sense lens. And I probably, like any of you out there that actually clicked on this video, because I'm sure this thing isn't probably going to get a lot of traction in the algorithm, I was a Power Rangers fan as a kid. I grew up on this show in the 90s. It was one of those things that I was a huge fan of it, caught the episodes every week, used to win a bunch of prizes from my local TV station for all this stuff, and I had all of the VHSs. I had like the entire Green Ranger little saga and all of that kind of stuff. And then I had a bunch of the toys. I was a big Power Rangers fan. It was just one of those things that hit me right at the perfect time in elementary school. It was a fan favorite across the world. And you know, it's one of them things is like, this was the 90s, right? This is basically the point in the culture where we had cured racism. Like nobody talked about it. Nobody really cared about it anymore, except for like the absolute extremists out there. This was a beautiful time in our culture where people didn't give a crap about a lot of the kind of nonsense. We were all making jokes and we were all getting along and everybody was having a good time and it didn't really matter. But as we know, time and time again, boys and girls, that's never going to stop the legacy media institutions out there from trying to rewrite history and, of course, do their own personal little spin on how things actually happened. We would call it the media line, but spin is the term they like to use. Well, guess what, boys and girls? The Black Power Ranger, the original Black Power Ranger out there from the 90s, well, guess what? He ain't even having no part of it, and he is absolutely blasting the legacy media institutions out there for misconstruing what he says and spinning it in a completely and totally different narrative. And boys and girls, the best part about this is not only do we have his own words and his own post pushing back against this nonsense, but we even have evidence from way back in the day on the set filming this where they all knew it was funny, they all laughed about it, they all joked about it, and nobody was offended. You remember those good old days back in the... Are any of you out there old enough to remember those good old days back in the 90s? Where people weren't offended by absolutely everything like they are nowadays? Well, boys and girls, apparently so was the Black Power Ranger as well. So we're taking this article from thatparkplace.com. Black Power Ranger controversy ignites Hollywood media spin, but the original actor isn't having it, and that is a beautiful thing to see, boys and girls. So we're going to get into this article, getting all of the juicy details, and show you exactly what he has actually said when it comes to him casting as the Black Power Ranger, being a black man. But before we do, if you do enjoy our content, hit that like button, share with all your friends, and subscribe or follow if you have not already, boys and girls, because we are grinding, we are growing, and I could not do that without every single one of you. We just crossed 1,700. We're on our way to 1,800, and if you join that you hit that little button down there, it would get us even closer and closer to that goal, and I will thank you very much if you do. Also, let us know what you think about all of this. Does it surprise you at all that Hollywood media is lying out there and trying to spin something from way back in the day, way back in the era of the culture where, guess what, racism didn't matter to 99% of people in the United States out there? Does it surprise you at all that they are trying to rewrite history whenever they can? Are you actually also surprised to see an actual Hollywood actor stand up, speak out, and push back against the absolute nonsense narrative that they are pushing? Let us know all that in the comment section down below. If you'd like to support the channel, please check the links in the description as well. All right, from thatparkplace.com and our dear sweet Montanero. The mainstream media has once again latched onto a retro TV moment and turned it into something it was never meant to be. This time, the target is the 90s kids action show Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, specifically the casting decisions made over 30 years ago. Remember, it's just like, well, the Disney Snow White movie, it was of its time. You know, it's kind of dated. It doesn't have a lot of modern sensibilities in it. Or, I don't know, Rings of Power. Well, Tolkien was just so of his time. But he was a progressive. He'd totally be okay with all of this kind of stuff. Yeah, all of those kind of rewritings of history that we've seen in the past. I mean, those are way old. Those stories are way older than this one. And this one is 30 years ago. And they're trying to rewrite the past once again. According to headlines making the rounds this week, the show's head writer, Tony Oliver, confessed that it was a mistake to cast a black actor as the Power Ranger and an Asian actress as the Yellow Ranger. And honestly, it was something that barely even registered in my mind as a kid. Like, I'm a half Mexican, my little sister's half black, my little brother's a quarter Korean, and my other little sister's like 100% Wisconsin white. Like, okay, like you don't get more diverse than I do. We go to family functions and we decide who can make the most offensive joke towards the other person's race. Like, that's how we interact, that's how we laugh, that's how we make fun of things. Because we know it's not that serious and the color of your skin doesn't matter. It's all about the content of your character, which is something that all of the leftists out there seem to have forgotten forgotten, and of course their push for diversity, inclusion, and equity, because it's all okay, the discrimination's all okay, as long as they're doing it right. Yeah, not how things working back there. And it sounds like Tony Oliver is just trying to get back in the good graces of the modern Hollywood sensibilities by saying something as stupid as this. Oliver's comments come from the new investigation discovery series, Hollywood Demons, where he claims, "None of us were thinking stereotypes because nobody cared about them in the 90s. It didn't matter. It wasn't important. We knew it all was a joke, and nobody should take any of it too seriously. That was the difference." And that he didn't realize the potential for controversy until an assistant pointed it out much later. "It was such a mistake," he added, sparking an avalanche of editorial takes, social media chatter, and surface-level hot takes. Oh, color us shocked there. What most of these outlets conveniently left out, however, is the perspective of the actual actor at the center of the so-called controversy, Walter Emanuel Jones, the original Black Ranger himself. And if I remember correctly from somebody out there in my audience, I believe he's going to be at like a Louisiana Comic-Con coming up this weekend. So maybe if you're in the area, go check it out. Go shake his hand. Tell him you did a great job. Tell him you were one of his favorite Rangers. If it's true, obviously, but he was a great Ranger. Why wouldn't you love Zach? Zach was great. He was all hip-hop and like in the embodiment of black culture in the 90s. Like, it was wonderful. You know what I mean? So it's one of them situations. But yeah, if you get a chance, go see him, go shake his hand, give him a thank you for standing up and not just falling in line with all of the political BS and all the political nonsense that goes out there in the mainstream culture, right? So here's the headline from People. Oh yeah, People. Power Rangers writer admits casting black and Asian actors as Black Ranger and Yellow Ranger was such a mistake. And like I said, this isn't like it's some, off their own. It's not like it's the Mary Sue posting this. No, it's the People magazine, right? It's the People magazine. And as you can see, this is the Instagram post from Walter Jones right here. Maybe go give him a follow over there on Instagram if you haven't. Show your support. And you can see it right here and everything else. So this is exactly what he says right here. And if you want it in bigger letters, you can read it down below, but we'll read it straight off his Instagram post. Walter says, "Incredible how many media outlets picked this up. However, while some choose to seek out the negative, I have always believed in focusing on the positive. I understand the impulse to address what might be seen as cultural insensitivity, but calling it a mistake? You're literally saying him getting cast in a role that made him a national figure on television for an entire generation of kids was a mistake. Giving a young black man, an opportunity in Hollywood was a mistake? Really? Oh, really? But calling it a mistake would dismiss the impact it had on countless people around the world who found inspiration and representation in TV's first black superhero. Now, I don't know if he's technically the first black superhero, but needless to say, especially in the 90s, for any kids growing up in there, he definitely would have been the first one you'd seen and ever been exposed to in his childhood. It wasn't like it was some gimmick, right? That's the problem we have with this stuff in the modern era, right? It's always a gimmick when you cast one of these actors, especially when you do race swaps and gender swaps and stuff like that, right? Because they'll tell you, it'll be all on the nose. This is what everybody's like, oh, what do you mean? How's it woke? The definition of woke, especially when it comes to Hollywood, putting your political agenda above good storytelling and what works, right? And that's why when you see this stuff, everybody in the modern era rolls their eyes at it because, just like we've seen in so many other things out there, they just beat you over the head with it over and over and over, Garrett, with girl bosses and them talking down to the male characters, them trashing the male characters getting put sideline, and then the woman's just the bestest thing and she's the key to everything. We've seen this stuff happen over and over again. That's why people have a negative reaction to it in the era that we live in now because of what Hollywood's done. Not because we were ists or phobes or anything like that, but it's because of the kind of crap storytelling Hollywood gives us every time. Disney's Snow White, anyone? The Marvels, which was not even necessarily a race swap, but just a completely and totally different change of the character from what they were in the comics, right? All to push a political agenda. That was not something the majority of people, I would say 99% of your average person in America in the 90s was even thinking about. Nobody took this garbage seriously, and clearly Walter didn't either. The representation is TV's first black superhero, morphing into none other than the Black Ranger. It wasn't a mistake. It was a milestone. Absolutely. Because guess what? I guarantee you that got a lot of kids in the black community into Power Rangers because he was a cool character. He was a lot of fun. He was smart. He had a little bit of sassiness to him, and he was also he was doing the whole hip hop dance thing, and it was great. And it made sense as well with the fact that we had a gymnast out there, right? We had karate people out there. We had a nerd out there, and then you had the black guy that could dance. So it made sense that it wouldn't be much for him to jump around and flip. I mean, the guy was doing wicked break dancing in the show. So it's like it's not far fetched that he could probably jump around in a suit, especially once he gets all souped up with powers and take bad guys out. It all made sense for the story. That's why it wasn't even woke orists at Phobes at all. Says it was a milestone. It was an honor. Swipe to hear me speak more about it on a recent episode of Jim Cummings' podcast. Jim Cummings' podcast. Hashtag Black Ranger. Hashtag Walter Jones. Hashtag Power Rangers. And absolutely, because it was a milestone. It was a great achievement. And it was something that was wonderful to everybody out there. Nobody at all gave two craps about it. And why? Oh, well, we can prove that. This is absolutely wonderful. In one statement, Jones managed to dismantle the entire narrative being pushed. Far from feeling misrepresented or sidelined, he viewed the role as historic, and he's right. For a generation of kids, Zach Taylor wasn't just a Ranger, he was the Ranger. He was the swagger, the energy, and the cool factor. And more importantly, Jones was right. He was the first black superhero many 90 kids ever saw on screen. And this is where the evidence is that nobody cared about it and nobody was offended back then. Even in the documentary, old camcorder footage shows Jones joking on set. My name's Walter Jones. I play Zach. I'm black and I play the Black Ranger. Go figure. It was self-aware, lighthearted, and absolutely not a moment of outrage. It was a cast having fun while making something memorable. And it's one of them situations where it's absolutely insane. It's absolutely insane. And he's pushing back, and he's not allowing this to happen. He's not allowing them to change and rewrite history based on the idiot words coming out of one person's mouth who probably is just trying to get himself back into Hollywood by saying the right things. Also, the Yellow Ranger. There's also the matter of Trini Kwan, the Yellow Power Ranger on the show. But it's worth noting, the original actress cast as Yellow Ranger, Audrey Dubas, was not Asian. She was originally cast for the pilot, but left over a contract dispute. The role was then recast with Thuy Trang, a Vietnamese-American actress who was later edited into existing footage. In short, the casting of an Asian actress wasn't planned. It happened as a result of behind-the-scenes changes. Trang embodied the peaceful consciousness of the group, which is what the team was seeking, not a demographic check box. Exactly. Because all of that stuff wasn't the point of any of this. That was the whole point of none of this. It was about an equal balance of characters that could properly represent the balance we needed to bring to the show to make everybody feel right and to have everybody, you had Trini, as they said, was the balance, right? You had the Zach as the swagger. You had, Billy? We had Billy as our brains. You had Jason as the strong leader, the archetype of the stoic man, right? The guy that's completely kind of zen with himself, but he will take a fight if you need it. And then you had the wild card thrown in later with Tommy. And of course, Tommy was wonderful, and he's probably become everybody's probably number one, probably the most favorite by the majority of the fans out there by a long shot. That's what you needed for all of that. And you had Kimberly, right? The Valley Girl gymnast, right? The one who likes getting her hair done. They literally were a representation of the 90s demographics of kids growing up in the 90s. That's literally what they were. They were a perfect representation of all of those different demographics. But just because he was the Black Ranger, obviously he didn't care about it back in the day, but they certainly are trying to care about it now. And obviously Trang sadly passed away in 2001. Her portrayal gave many young viewers. While Tony Oliver now looks back on the decision through a different lens, the context matters. Neither he nor co-creator Shuki Levy were coming from a U.S.-centric worldview at the time. Levy, who grew up in Israel, previously told Complex, being a black person is like being any kind of color. It's not something that we talked about all the time. It wasn't a big issue, and that's the whole thing. Nobody was even thinking about it back then. It just happened to be a little bit of a coinky dink, right? That they ended up as this character, or just the fact that, hey, guess what? He had the swagger. He had the swagger of a young black man. Shout out to Disney Marvel for that one. And, you know, he had the swagger. He had all of that kind of fun stuff and all of that kind of stuff going on with him. He could pull off the moves. He could pull off the dance moves. He could pull off a believable, cool character, and everybody loved him for it. Nobody gave two craps about it. Unfortunately, nuance doesn't trend, and that's exactly what's missing in the rush to rewrite pop culture history. Instead of celebrating a cultural touchstone that meant the world to millions of kids, the media chose to drag the conversation into modern buzzword territory. Thankfully, Walter Jones didn't let the narrative stand. He reminded everyone that Power Rangers gives kids a world where heroes didn't all look the same, and that was the point. Representation wasn't a checkbox, it was natural, earned, and impactful. Amen to that, brother. If only the media could morph into something with that kind of wisdom. Well written. And you know what? Shout out to our dear sweet Walter Jones over here. Shout out to Walter Jones for making his voice heard, pushing back against this nonsense, and not putting up with it. I mean, that mastodon was cool, man. Who didn't love a good woolly mammoth? I mean, let's be completely honest. That thing was awesome. I had those toys as a kid. He was a great Power Ranger. He was a wonderful addition to the character, and nobody gave two shits or two thoughts to the fact that he was black. And now, 30 years, practically over 30 years at this point, they are trying to rewrite history and putting a label back on the show that, well, there was a bunch of ifs and phobes, and that's why we're going to have to rewrite it and modernize it in our own image. Yeah, how well has that worked out? Fans don't want your modern retellings. They don't give a crap about your modern sensibilities and who you're offended by and what you're offended by. And guess what? Neither does the black actor that played the role. He doesn't care. They made jokes about it. It was like, that's a little on the nose, but whatever. We're having fun. It's a blast. Nobody cared. Why? Because back then we didn't all have sticks up our asses and a bunch of fists up our hands, feeding a bunch of talking points out of people's mouths in the legacy media and in the average day population out there. Walter Jones is an absolute legendary Power Ranger, and the beautiful part about it is he is pushing back and he is not allowing this to go. So you know what, boys and girls? It's morphin' time. Push back against the media narrative. Do not let them lie about what is arguably one of the greatest kids television shows in the 90s ever. Make sure the truth is heard. Share this everywhere you can so that the media's lies continue to get called out and continue to get pushed back against, because the legacy institutions are failing because they lie about stuff like this. And guess what? We will not let it stand, and neither will the Black Pain Power Rangers. Shout out to Walter James. I hope you come to a con very close to me sometime soon, because, good sir, I cannot wait to shake your hand for you pushing back and being honest about what the truth was in the culture of the 90s and not allowing People magazine or the rest of the Hollywood legacy institutions to rewrite history. Power Rangers fans are not going to stand for it.